Folks, welcome back to the NFL Alumni Lounge, and today we're very excited. We have NFL reporter, but New York royalty, Miss Kim Jones. Kim, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Charlie?
I'm doing great. I woke up and I said, am I in the twilight zone? Because I think the Buffalo Bills are right now New York's team.
They're really good.
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday or Sunday's game was, a roller coaster ride. I was actually surprised they pulled it out only because the Rams had such momentum. And boy, when they get momentum, they're a lot to handle. And, the one thing I love, Charlie, in my job, like I never get to see Aaron Donald. I remember him from Pitt on the East Coast, but I never see Aaron Donald. You watch him play, you watch him even warm up. And I said this yesterday on NFL Network, like the great ones carry themselves differently, and he does. And then in a game, he can obviously completely wreck a game, which is what I thought was going to end up happening. And lo and behold, the Bills and Josh Allen pull it out. That was incredible.
And like you just said, the great ones carry themselves a little different. And I think we all saw yesterday, Josh Allen march down that field with a lot of confidence for a young quarterback. What has he been like for you to watch compared to the Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold? Talk about those three a little bit.
Yeah, Josh has been great with me all along. In his first two seasons, obviously, I was talking to him in locker room settings, at the facility, stuff like that. Josh has always been someone who says, I have to do better. A lot of quarterbacks say we, and we's okay. It's a team game. But he always has taken, in my experience with him, ownership of mistakes and the idea that he has to play better. I think that plays well in a locker room. I think teammates have a lot of respect for that. And I think that Josh vowed to improve his completion percentage. And a lot of people scoffed at that, Charlie. You probably heard some of the same voices I did. That's impossible. Josh Allen's always going to be inaccurate. He has the big arm, but no touch. Yeah. Well, we're seeing just the opposite of that this year. And Stephon Diggs is, of course, helping along with that ride. I look at Daniel and Sam, and they just don't have nearly around them what Josh Allen does. Now, I still think Josh Allen's ahead. I think Josh Allen has separated himself in some very different ways, but I don't think we can ignore the idea that his receivers are better than the ones that Sam and Daniel are working with at this point. The running game's better because there's no Saquon anymore this season. Shot. And obviously the Jets with Le'Veon, he's on IR, and Frank Gore's there. But the Bills have done a great job of building around their quarterback, and they're getting the results now.
Yeah, they are. So when we talk Giants and Jets, two different cultures, and we look at Judge, we look at Gase at the helms of each. You've been around winning cultures, some of the most winning cultures. You've been around losing cultures. What's your take on these cultures, even though it might be harder to get a read now that we're in this COVID era?
Yep. Well, they got to get better, both of them. The Giants get a little bit of a break from the media, in my opinion. Yeah. And I think Joe Judge is certainly getting a chance to prove himself. That part I have no issue with. But the Giants are 12-39, I think, at this point over their last, 3+ seasons or whatever that math turns into. That's worse than the NFL, and it's unacceptable. And the one thing John Marra said before this season started was, his father, Wellington, who I remember him. I covered the Giants back then. Wellington Marra always wanted the Giants playing meaningful games in December. Now, he wanted to win championships also, of course, but the point is obvious. You want to be in it when it matters most down the stretch of a season and not eliminated, not sitting out the playoffs. You want to be involved. Well, John Marra made that essentially that proclamation about this team. And it's hard to imagine this team being competitive even through Thanksgiving and maybe even Halloween.
Yeah.
They're just, and losing Saquon obviously hurt an awful lot. And then there are the Jets where, the Jets just seem to ride a wave that's only bad luck and then more bad luck. And it's not all luck. And I understand that, but the injuries, the lack of playmakers around Sam, are really coming back to haunt them as we see it every Sunday. And listen, I don't know how many defenses could lose C.J. Mosley, who opted out of the season, which is his right as a player, and the trade of Jamal Adams.
Huge.
We can only imagine what that team would look like with those two on it, but they're not.
They're not. And I think that did also have some effects on that locker room and
Yeah.
that culture. Now, like you just said, you just mentioned the great Wellington Marra. You were also around for George Steinbrenner years.
Mm-hmm.
What are the magic essence that these strong leaders put into a winning formula? Like, is there any magic there that you could help us bottle?
Well, I mean, I think to some degree, there's the element of fear,
Mm,
like in a different way.
right.
I only met George Steinbrenner once. I started at Yes in 2005, and I only met him one time. And by then, he was obviously an older man, but he was very nice in that one conversation. But there's always fear of George and those missives he would send out, and the idea that any losing stretch at all was just not acceptable.
Right.
And then for Wellington Marra, I don't think it was the same kind of leadership, but I certainly think there was the idea that you didn't want to disappoint Wellington Marra. And I'm guessing behind the scenes, he had a tougher edge because you almost have to be a great leader. So I think to some degree, a lot of that's gone. I do think our culture has changed to some degree, but even now when I, from a distance, hear some of the things that Yankee players say, I kind of go, really? Oh my gosh. Even when Derek Jeter was there, this never would have been acceptable,
right.
And it's now kind of, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
That stuff to me is hard to reconcile. I'm not a big fan of any of that stuff. And I think that's why I gravitate to the players, generally speaking, who hold themselves to standards way, way, way up here.
Right.
Because that's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Jones has seen winners, folks. All right. She knows winners when she sees them. But it's so true. It's how you carry yourself. So with that being said, and with how we've been seeing these Bills carry themselves, where do you see them going? Do you see this could be a nice pro season for them this year?
Yeah, I do actually. And, one of the stories I told on the air Sunday, which I love, is Brandon Beane tried to trade for Stephon Diggs at the trade deadline last year. Yeah. And the Vikings said no. And then after he watched his Bills team lose in Houston, and I was at that game, it was a terrible loss for the Bills. They settled for 4 field goals. And as they were settling for field goal after field goal, I turned to my field producer, Christine Martin, and I said, settling for these field goals is going to bite them. You just had that feeling.
Yep.
And here comes Deshaun Watson and all his greatness, later in that game, and it did bite them. So after seeing that playoff game, Brandon Beane goes back to the Vikings. That's now the offseason, of course, and says, what can we do? I want to trade for Diggs, because he knew they needed an elite playmaker. They have playmakers. He knew they needed that elite playmaker, and they ended up making a deal. I think that's the kind of guts, willingness to take a chance, because he gave up a first-round pick. Now, no one cares now. They cared originally.
Doesn't matter now.
Too much, but no one's saying that now. But I think once you have a roster mostly built, I do understand the idea, Charlie, that you need to then take that one almost leap of faith, because no one in the Bills organization, as far as I can tell, knew Stephon Diggs. No. They didn't necessarily know how all of this was going to go, and they didn't really even meet him till like August.
Right.
Basically. This year has been so weird. Yeah. But that leap of faith to say, this could pay off huge for us, and I think we're seeing that. And I admire the Bills a lot. They've done the building. They built around their quarterback, and then they got their quarterback that final piece. I think there's a lot to be said for that, and I do think in many ways the Jets and Giants could learn from that.
And there's a lot of toughness on that team too. You look at a guy like Beasley, like there's these tough factors. So now,
and Tremaine Edmonds, he's one of my favorite players in the league, and we never talk about him. Still 22 in his 3rd season. And Charlie, when you watch him in pregame, and I watched him very closely at that playoff game in Houston, because they were warming up right in front of the linebackers were right by me, warming up, and the Bills have seen him grow from a leader, from the Kyle Williams Bills to the Lorenzo Alexander Bills. And both of them are awesome, by the way, as I think you probably know as well. But to now, very, very, very much on defense, the Tremaine Edmonds Bills. And they could be the Tremaine Edmonds Bills on defense for 12 years.
Yeah. Yeah. They really have this nucleus right now of something special. Yeah. So now when we look at, the Adam Gase-led Jets.
Yeah.
And like a guy like Darnold, right? He comes out, he's clearly extremely talented. He's a gamer.
Yeah.
Does having a losing culture around you start to wear? Like, where do you think that starts to wear on a guy? And are you worried about that?
Yeah, I think to some degree, if you're Sam, and I'm not speaking for him, and
Right.
this is me, these are my comments. I haven't talked to Sam individually.
Yeah.
You look around a huddle, Perryman's not even there anymore. Frank Gore is obviously an absolute legend, but he's their most established running back. LaMichael Pirine might grow into something. Denzel Mims, your prize second rounder that they were so excited to get where they got him, hasn't been out for a down. He hasn't been on the field for a down yet because of the hamstrings. Reminds me a little bit of Odell, by the way, although I'm not sure he's going to turn his season around the way Odell turned his rookie season around after hamstring issues. So you're Sam, you're looking at a huddle, in the back of his mind, even if it's not like a conscious thought, he's got to wonder, how the heck are we going to get it done with these guys? Yeah. He has to wonder that. Chris Hogan a few years ago would have been viable. Now he's, their most veteran guy and in some cases Sam's best option.
It's wild.
It's really crazy. I would love to be able to do this with Daniel, Sam, and Josh and put them in different spots and find out what happens.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, it would be, right? Because I think we'd see some, not all, but some different. And I'm not diminishing Josh when I say that at all. I have great respect for Josh Allen, but I think we would see some different results.
What would be the strongest team? If you had to right now, you build a team, all the variables, right? You got a number one defense. You got all the weapons. Who's Kim Jones putting in as QB?
I'd take Josh Allen. He is so impressive to me in the way he leads, the way he holds himself accountable. His gifts are pretty special. I think I think sometimes we go big arm and roll our eyes.
Yeah.
He has an awful lot of gifts that make you think, this guy puts it all together. He could be really special. Of the three, he would be my pick.
Absolutely. I think we'd all agree there. And we can't let you go without asking you this. We have this big magical week here, right? Because we got World Series stuff rolling in.
Yeah.
We got the NBA Finals rolling in. So I would like your pick for the World Series champion. And who's taking home the finals, the Lakers or the Heat?
You know what? I hope the Rays win it all because
really?
I have always respected the fact that they do it without a lot of the advantages that the bigger market teams have. Yeah. Listen, Joe Madden was ahead when it came to the shift and everyone hated it. Yeah. And he did it and he did it and he did it. And then everyone copied it. Even the Yankees, who way back when used to roll their eyes at Joe Madden, they then copied Joe Madden. And then you see the opener, and if the opener doesn't, equal Tampa Bay Rays, I don't know what does. And now other teams have sometimes out of necessity and many times out of necessity copied them as well. I get a kick out of the Rays because they're the ultimate underdog. Yeah. NBA, I'm not as wrapped up in. I got to be honest with you. I just, when it comes time to for my time management, that one usually backseat.
You're a very busy woman.
I will watch the finals. Let's put it that way. And I will be intrigued by them. And what else did you ask me about, or was that it?
Well, who's the pick? Lakers or Heat? Who are you putting it down?
Lakers. You know what? I think the easy pick's the Lakers. When you got the best player, you're going to win it all, right?
You take a risk on the Rays. Go safe on the Lakers. I like the math on that.
There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, for all your latest, Kim always has you covered. Kim, thank you so much for checking in with the NFL.
Anytime. This was fun. Thank you.